Yeah. That works.
Don't fall.
Core. Use your core. Yeah, I like this better. This is better.
There we go. All right. This is gonna be exactly as it should be. It's gonna be for fun. We're just gonna have fun, and basically we're gonna have our conversation, and we're gonna allow them to eavesdrop.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
Good evening, hello. I don't know why I'm saying good evening. Who knows what time it is for you? Hey friends, I am Matt Shorty Wells. Welcome back to Shorty Does Life. We are back on the grounds at Rythmia. Today I am here with a new friend, a new soul sister, Syrena. Syrena just went through, we are Saturday, it's Saturday now at the end of our week-long experience here at the Rythmia way. And this beautiful soul had so much great sharing. I wanted to capture some of this on the blog here, give you guys a chance to meet my friend Syrena and hear from her. Syrena, so let's start off. So introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself, what brought you to a place like this. What are some of the things and takeaways you gotten out of it, and anything that's on your heart to share?
Sure. Thank you for having me. For one, yes, I'm Syrena. I'm a registered nurse, and what brought me here was I was suffering from PTSD since COVID, working in the hospitals and all of the trauma that included. And I got to a point where I wasn't sure where I was supposed to go next after completing
I don't know, because the microphone's right over there. So,
okay. Yeah. Completing a nursing assignment, and then coming home to finding out that my housing situation had changed. And so I literally felt lost and traumatized. And so I needed guidance as to where I needed to be, where I should be. And I ended up here. Pretty much led here. I had no clue what ayahuasca was.
That's what I was about to ask you to clarify. Did you know what you were getting into?
No clue what it was. I just heard herbal medicine, and because I'm familiar with some herbs and medicine, I said yes, not knowing that there was a whole mother involved with ayahuasca and how she pretty much makes you look in the mirror at yourself, and realize who you really are. And the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then she helps you to purge all those things that are not so good, and then use that light that you have with her shining through you to actually bless others. So that was awesome. It was a beautiful introduction to Mother, to be able to hear her voice. I very much have been close to God since I think I was about 8 or 9 years old, but hearing, and then I almost felt convicted to hear some other spirit other than God because of how religion is. And I realized that Mother is just as, if not as important as God.
So let me ask you on this note, what is your religious background? Do you grow up like Catholic, Christian kind of a thing? And did this bother that? Did it challenge any of your in any way? Did any of this?
It did. When I found out what it was, I found out that there's a spirit behind it. It made me feel convicted. My religion is not denominational Christian. So the word is focused on God only, or the Trinity that is God, which is God, the Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. So I felt convicted, not that I felt judged by God. I just felt convicted, like, and apprehensive, like I don't want to conflict. I don't want to make another spirit my God. I want to make sure that I stayed subservient under God. So and then taking the first experience with ayahuasca, I realized they work hand in hand. And at this point, there's a mom voice now and a dad voice. So it's a beautiful thing. Now, to answer your question in terms of what I learned outside of that, I would have to say the part of the moon. So Mother clearing me out, I have to say that I had a history of fibroids, and she cleared out my fibroids. Now, during the part of my purging of clearing out my fibroids outside of pain, I also started to experience a menstrual cycle. And it's not uncommon. They say pretty much every week after the second day, There are women, right in preparation for the femininity night, start to have a menstrual cycle, whether we just had, in my case, had a menstrual cycle. I had a menstrual cycle 2 weeks ago.
So this wasn't your normal schedule.
This is my normal
There's something
schedule.
about this process that can trigger this.
Yeah, okay.
Right on.
And for me, because of the fibroids, I was taught that I hold in my tension in my pelvic chakra. So it formed it was consolidated as in the form of fibroids. And for different people, just so your audience knows, the way we handle things that we grew up with as we go on day to day, sometimes if we don't handle it correctly, it can manifest in the form of a disease or an illness.
Disease, yeah.
So in my case, it was fibroids. And so she was clearing those fibroids out. And so I started to bleed. What's funny is that, so not for, I didn't realize it. That's what I mean by funny. But I went into the clinic to let them know. And there were 3 other women saying the same thing. My menstrual cycle started, I already had it. My menstrual cycle started, it was stopping. My menstrual cycle started, this is not the right time. And we were all in there at the same time. It's like, wow, okay. So we realized that, and it was right in time for the femininity part, that night when we were taking the drink for femininity.
Wednesday night then? Yeah,
yes,
Wednesday night. Yeah.
Yes, because it was for Tuesday. We all experienced it right in time for Wednesday.
Okay.
One thing we realized, so we ended up having a separate ceremony on Thursday, and it was called the Moon Party. It's related to the moon.
Yeah, right.
And the reason why they call it the moon is that that's what they call a menstrual cycle. It's your moon. You have your moon. The most powerful thing, there's a lot of powerful things that we learned in our own ceremony, is that in ancient times, when men and women used to partake in ayahuasca, the men would go through the purging procedure, but if the women had their moon, they had no experience. They did not experience anything. And they kept trying to figure out, why is it that we're not experiencing anything, but they're having all of their visions and everything, the women aren't having anything. And what they came to realize is that there's a power, there's so much of a power in the menstrual cycle, that it was actually canceling out mother ayahuasca. And
for the women.
For the women.
Right. Yeah.
And just knowing that was so empowering for me. So we all, the Moon Sisters, I call them my Moon Sisters now, we all had our own celebration and acknowledged where we are in our power. But one thing we did talk about was that society right now, there's so much negativity that's associated with the menstrual cycle. I remember distinctly, and I spoke on this in the group, I remember like I'll be watching TV. We had one television, we all shared it. I have 10 siblings, but this particular was like 3 of my brothers and myself who would watch television together, and sometimes the 4th brother. And no matter whatever we were watching, when a commercial came on about a menstrual cycle, a tampon or menstrual pads, they would stop silently and just stare at me. And it was such a negative feeling that I took in, like, I don't understand why is this happening every time this commercial, a commercial or something like that comes on. So them not knowing, because they're brothers, it affected me to the point that when I would hear about or think about, and I hadn't even started, I was young, I was 9, I hadn't even started a menstrual cycle yet, but it gave me a negative connotation associated with menstrual cycles. And then as my friends started getting their menstrual cycles, I was one of the last ones to get mine, but when my friends started getting their menstrual cycles, I would hear whispers of negativity, like, oh, it's my menstrual cycle, oh, or boys teasing girls, or other girls teasing girls, or then it's silence where, do you have a pad? Do you have a tampon?
There's a shame built around this.
It's very much a shame
around a natural thing, which is so silly.
And the sad part is, this is the most powerful point of our lives, and we had no clue.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to speak to you about it, and because I think in some points, she mentioned in the leader of our party, she mentioned that at some point the men would in some ways get envious of the women's power, because as a masculine man, you want to have the power.
Right. Yeah.
So there was almost
insecure bitches trying to put light on power.
Yeah.
It's not an uncommon thing in the human condition.
Yeah. So wait, I'm the man. You're not supposed to have power too. I'm the masculine. And so there was some envy there. So it makes sense that now over time that it's made as a negative, that is made for women to feel weaker. in those weak moments. Well, we it made us feel weaker in the moment where we thought was weak, when actually it's empowering.
Yep.
And I said, everyone needs to know this. Men and women, children need to know this, and that foundation needs to be brought back into and rooted, which is why I agreed to do this with you. Is that our moon is a very powerful thing, and we need to hone it in as something that we've been blessed with. It's a beautiful thing.
You have something on your heart that you know is a song that needs to be sung, because you know how much it resonated with you. You saw how society treats this human condition, and I'm a real big believer in, I mean, it makes sense to me. Humans, we could be insecure. It's so silly. And I don't know. And we're getting more and more. Humanity is evolving and growing so much these days. We're getting, I don't know how much you know about going through the ages, but there's something about Sirius and us, and we're getting closer. So I've been saying for years, the average truck driver today is more enlightened than the diligent, studious, preacher, person just 10, 15 years ago. You know what I mean? We're more naturally in tune with our truth and who and what we are. But there's a lot of old ways and a lot of old, habits, and just suppression of power has been a play for a long time. It seems. And with this being on your heart to sing this and seeing your experience of the shame around something that is so natural and so beautiful and necessary for the perpetuation of the people of life.
You know what I mean? It actually is needed for life and the continuation of life.
Right.
Why should there be a shunning where there should be a shame associated with it, when no, it's actually should be celebrated?
100%.
The ironic, I think it resonates with me the most is because I work in infertility.
Oh, do you? Okay. I know you're a nurse, but okay. Right on.
I work in infertility, and we need a menstrual cycle to even start any type of testing to know where they are, to test where they are in terms of hormones and any actual treatment. So like if they go forward with insemination, whether they go forward with IVF, we need a menstrual cycle. We need the moon. So it's very important. It needs to be acknowledged in a more positive way, because
more celebrated than shunned.
Yes, because it's how we all got here.
Yeah. I think every bit of the human condition is worthy of celebration, and not a single part of it is worthy of shun. Not even the whatever you think, oh, this activity or this behavior, even the negative behavior, it's still part of the process. It's still part of the growing, the unfoldment. Sometimes you have to really experience. I mean, look, the Maloka is right to our left, right over here. And some of the things that go down in that Maloka, they would, from an outside standard looking in, right? Like we've got some pictures right now of some things that had happened, right? And then I don't want to tell you about a story here, but let's say one cat was going through something that looked like a very hell experience. And then you talk to that cat the next day,
and they're so relieved.
It was a liberating experience. They really got their power back. I mean, so an outside looking in, you just don't know what's really going on here. I don't know. I think a big way to check your judgment is every time you think to find something wrong or judge, you really have to turn it around and look at you. Because honestly, the judgment is your projection of how you feel about yourself. That's right. Yeah.
So regardless of what someone tells you, whether it's in private or in public, I've seen this many times where a person is like spilled their very vulnerable situation to others, and then the others say, oh, I'm so sorry, but then like days later or whatever, they get mad for some reason, and they actually use that vulnerability to attack that person. And to me, it's not the person who was vulnerable, it's really the person who was attacking. Why is that your artillery? Why do you use that as your artillery? And really it's your own insecurity, it's your own sadness, it's your own pain that you're projecting onto that person who's being brave enough to be vulnerable.
That's right. Yeah.
So think twice before you judge and say, wait a minute, what's wrong with me?
What is it? Because I've said this for years, anytime there's a behavior that I witness in another, if that bothers me, that's something I'm not willing to see about myself. I'm willing to acknowledge it over here. You know what I mean? It's a shadow projection, they call it.
Dr. Phil said this a long time ago, and it helped me do this. He said, what is it about that person that I don't like about myself?
That's a good way to say
it. And that resonated
That's a good way
to say
it.
Oh my goodness.
That's right. That's facts. That's facts. Yeah, that is real.
Yeah, they irritate you that much is because it's something that's uneven. So that's not right with you.
Yeah. And you've not yet been willing to see that about yourself. And it's that shadow self stuff, which was new language to me just a year ago or so. I didn't know what shadow meant. Now I studied Carl Jung and the shadow and all this kind of stuff. But essentially, it's the parts of ourselves that we either don't want to acknowledge at all, or if we do acknowledge them, we minimize it.
Like,
And it's just,
but yeah, but that was.
but then we'll see it over here. Like, that person's really bad with it. But, oh, I do it just a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
sweetheart.
It's like the baseball. Oh, the sun was in my eyes. It was like, oh, you suck. You didn't do it right. The sun was in his eyes too. It's okay. It's okay. It's what you do with the information that you have. And when it's uncomfortable, that's when you really need to take a deeper dive into what's going on and then address it. The quicker you address it, you're free.
Yep. What Christy, what was her thing today? She said, if you face your fears, you don't have to face your fears.
Exactly.
Oh,
that's it.
I was like,
that's
oh,
it.
Yeah.
That's
it. Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I want to bring up the other two because it blessed me. The first one was living is giving. And I want to add to that and say loving is giving.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then the second one was, oh, what did she say? Oh, be kind to your heart. Be gentle with your heart. We have to learn to love ourselves, and sometimes we don't even know, or we think we know and we don't. Know how to love ourselves, and that's just because of how we were exposed to some things and maybe not exposed to others. So we just have to accept that's where we are and love where we are in that spot, and then just do the work to clean up and clear out.
Anytime there's a feeling of shame, that's a signal. You know, look at this. You know what I mean? Anytime there's a feeling of shame or angst, or you know, I have this thing. So that little rant here. The Bible talks about, you know, I grew up Catholic, and they I don't want to speak for, but I heard the message of you shall, you know, the truth shall set you free. This finger wagging, you know, you tell the truth, and the telling of the truth will set you free. Well, my understanding of that, what they're saying in the Bible is, you shall know the truth, and your knowing shall set you free. And I think what they mean by that is, when you know the truth of who and what you are, you're free from guilt, free from lack, free from angst, free from fear. Agree. You're free from that shit. When you know the truth of what you are, you have never been born. You will never die. You cannot be harmed. There's nothing outside of you. There's no outside. You know what I'm saying? I am you, you are me, we are the I am that I am. We are all individualized expressions of that one. And when we see that truth of life expression, that there is no separation here. The word ego means separate. So we have this egoic perspective that allows God to know thyself, right? So to God to play with itself, you know, itself, to interact with. So in order for me to interact with something, then I have to create these egoic perspectives. And that's a beautiful thing, but it's so the egoic perspective is blessed and beautiful and as it should be. And we don't want to get caught up with identifying with this meat suit. You know, I am this person and you are that person, because that false premise can allow us to build upon a lot of silly notions and take actions that it's not possible for me to harm another without harming myself. There's no one else here.
So true. So true. So true.
Anyway, that's some of the, you know.
And not just humans, animals too.
All of it.
Because it's and living. Anything living, we're all one.
Yep.
So yes.
There's a documentary. I haven't watched it yet, but it's something about the communication of trees, or the knowledge of trees, or something like that. So
they take it in. They take it in just like we do.
I need to watch that documentary. But it's I mean, it's all communicating. It's all connected. Great experience with the plant medicine ceremonies this week, though. Anything else you care to share?
I guess those are my main hit points, but I would just want to say, I love you. I don't know you, but I love you anyway. And I pray that if you haven't learned to love yourself, that you do learn to love yourself.
Amen.
I love you.
I love you. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime.
Thanks for tuning in. Hey, if y'all haven't subscribed to the Shorty Does Life blog, there's an opt-in box somewhere on here. ShortyDoesLife.com is where you're watching this. We've got more. We're going to do some more interviews with some more friends. So there's going to be a nice little series of Friends from Rythmia, round 2, 2022, last week of July. Peace and love. See y'all next time. That was fun.
Yay.